and I think talking can be good, but from our perspective, practice is primary. That to be able to go out and engage the world and change the world, in order for that to occur, then there has to be organization, but not just any kind of organization. The organization that we're talking about is organization to achieve some specific revolutionary goals. And our objective is to seize power, to actually capture political power, to be able to exercise political power. For this, you need a certain kind of organization. And for people who do not have on their agenda the seizure of political power, then it doesn't matter what kind of organization they have. And just because somebody is well organized in and of itself does not mean that they are organized to capture political power. And the fact is that African people experience the worst kind of oppression. And this is not something simply that is specific or solely affecting Africans, but it affects oppressed peoples around the world. People without power, who are victimized by a social system that has come and sucked up all the power that people once had, and has appropriated that power for themselves, has destroyed the ability of people to have their own power, to have their own resources, and system that has appropriated that capacity for itself. In order for people to be able to eat and guarantee that their families will have a future, in order for people to be able to have decent housing and healthcare and the kinds of things that we are concerned about, then the people have to have the power to do that. But in order to get the power to do that, they have to go up against a system that has taken that power away from us. And so that means that you have to have a special kind of organization to make that happen. Boy Scouts won't do it. NAACP won't do it. Southern Christian Leadership Conference and Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton and Black Lives Matter won't do it. And we could sit here and talk a long time about certain kinds of organizations that we know exist, but they are not organizations that are committed to nor organized for the purpose of achieving, capturing political power and wielding political power. And there are some organizations that actually may define themselves as revolutionary. They may say that this is what they're about, but the kind of organization they have, how they organize suggests that the capture of political power, the wielding of political power is not something that's high on their agenda, or if it is on the agenda, it is not something that's likely to be acquired. And that doesn't say that somebody who is organized a certain way can't take power, but it will say something about the nature of the power, the character of the political power that they will capture. So we want to talk about this. And we recognize that African people are up against a very not only powerful, but ruthless oppressor, ruthless enemy. You can't talk about anything more ruthless than turning an entire continent into a center for the production of human beings who will go out to be enslaved and scattered and oppressed around the world. It is a ruthless system. There's nothing that it's not capable of doing. There's nothing that it has not done. And slavery is our enslavement is only one aspect of it. But if you look around today, there are millions of people who live under brutal conditions, who don't have food and clothing. You're talking about people, the vast majority of people on earth, not having clean water, not having fire, the ability to heat themselves, not having decent health care. And all of what we're talking about is something that's quite possible for everybody to have. So there's something at work that keeps us from having it. and something at work that has demonstrated a willingness to use every kind of tool of cruelty, brutality, and torture in order to maintain the status quo. So this is the system that from which we are talking about extracting our power, taking our power, taking our ability to take care of ourselves. And so you just can't do that with any kind of organization. The NAACP, as I said, can't do it. Nation of Islam can't do it. You have to have a certain kind of organization. So the organization that we have created in the form of the African People's Socialist Party is really not peculiar in many ways. It's not unusual. It is an organization that first we became aware of in Europe under the leadership of a man called Vladimir Lenin, V.I. Lenin. And Lenin is the person who led the struggle that eventually captured political power in in Russia, and that at one time came to be known as the Soviet Union when it had united with various other previously existing states before Russia, or minority or other kinds of entities sometimes had been a part of what had been referred to as the Russian Empire. And so Lenin led this. And so one of the things that gives us confidence, some confidence in using this form of organization, is the fact that we've known it to be successful. And not just successful in capturing political power, because Hitler captured political power. And that was a form of organization. And we've seen other groups on the continent of Africa who've captured political power. And that was a form of organization that they utilized, but it was not a form of organization that resulted in power to the people in social transformation. And our form of organization not only must be capable of capturing and wielding political power, but it must be capable of capturing political power and wielding political power in the interests of the broad mass of African working and people in particular, as an instrument of power of the African working class at the service of the most oppressed sectors of the African population and the African nation as a whole. So we're talking about taking political power that will result in actual social transformation, not just having power, not just reproducing the kinds of relationships that exist today, but actual social transformation. And every revolutionary movement or something that is posed as revolutionary movement in the African world since our introduction to colonial white power has been a movement that has resulted, that has been actually fought. Every struggle fought by African workers or peasants. But in the end of the day, the workers of the peasants had no power. And the ones who had power were ones who were simply imitations of the white colonial power that dominated before. So we're not just talking about any kind of power. We're not just talking about any capture of political power. We're talking about capturing of political power with the intent of it being a power that's in the hands of the African working class, that's for the purpose of social transformation, transforming society. So we don't reproduce the vicious, brutal, dog-eat-dog kind of system that we've lived under for all this time. And the other thing that I think is really important for us to understand is that we are in a contest with a social system. We are oppressed in the United States. We are exploited in the United States. We are oppressed all over the continent of Africa, in every place that we live. But the fact is that our oppression gave, and captivity gave rise to a particular kind of social system. So when we talk about struggling in the United States, or struggling in Haiti, or struggling in the Bahamas, or struggling on the continent of Africa, we are, as a revolutionary movement, as a political party, conscious of struggling to overturn a kind of social system, a whole rotten social system that's not just in the United States. In the United States, you're looking at a particular a particular form of government, a particular kind of government. You're looking at the existence of a particular state apparatus. And yeah, we want to deal with this specific entity that we are confronted with, but we know that we're dealing with something that's even bigger than that. There's a whole social system that has come into existence, and that it is the role of the state that exists in the United States, and as it expresses itself on the continent of Africa through institutions like the NATO and the African Union, even, and various other organizations. These are entities, state entities that serve to protect the whole social system itself. So this is the kind of movement that we're involved in. I think it's really important for us to understand this, because the fact is that African internationalists, people who are members of the African People's Socialist Party, people who function in our constituent organizations and the various movements that we have attempted to provide leadership for, we are about transforming the entire world. And but we are materialists also, which means that we're not trying to affect the world in some kind of abstract way. We exist in particular places on the planet Earth, and we have to struggle to change the world from where we are located while attempting to extend our influence and our capacity in various other places around the world, and doing it in a fashion that recognizes the nature of the social system so that we can attack it at points that make the whole system where the system is most vulnerable, and give us the greater capacity to bring down the whole system. I just think it's important to understand that. And if we understand that, then we can understand the significance of the political work that we do in Chicago, or that we do in Nassau, or that we do in any particular place on earth. It's not just something that's specific to where we are located. It's not just a little tiny thing that we're involved in. We're involved in a movement to change the whole world. And the whole world is dominated by, as we said earlier, a very vicious system that has committed the worst kinds of offenses against humanity, that it would be impossible for some science fiction writer to come up and invent the kinds of cruelties that have actually been imposed upon peoples of the world by this social system that we are dealing with. So it's not an easy task. Lenin came up with this this kind of party. People often refer to this kind of party as the vanguard party. They call it sometimes a Leninist party, or in the most pejorative descriptions, I think the most pejorative description they give us is that we are Stalinist kinds of organization. And the truth is, it is a particular kind of organization. We organize in a fashion that will allow us to take power. And part of the reasons there has been this some controversy about the kind of political party that we need stems mostly from people who have been influenced by Marx. And I know that's contradictory, because Lenin himself was a Marxist. But Marx was a philosopher laws of social development that presupposed that on its own, society would go through these stages as a part of a process of working out contradictions within particular societies that would give rise to that society being transformed and taken to a higher level of productivity, producing what's necessary for human life: food, clothing, shelter, etc. And the Marxist philosophy makes the assumption that a human society went from a period of what he referred to as primitive communism, or primitive communalism, where there was no oppression, no exploitation in society, and then moves to a higher level of society, that was slavery. And I'm not talking about what happened with us. I'm talking about what happened with Kirk Douglas and like Spartacus. This is something that happened among white people, the white world, this slavery as a mode of production. And then from slavery to something that was called feudalism, and then from feudalism to capitalism, and from capitalism there's supposed to be this communism. And all of these things are natural consequences of society developing on its own, the contradiction in society happening. And so according many of people who call themselves Marxists and socialists, even up to this point, assume that somehow the contradictions inside the system will automatically and naturally give rise to another kind of social system. Lenin, however, was much more practical in the sense that assuming that they had to have a certain kind of organization to make this happen. Marx was a part of an organization, more than one organization, and he helped to create what was called some kind of working man's organization, international. It was what people refer to as the first international, people who were part of the Marxist communist movement. And but he didn't create the kind of organization that Lenin created. Lenin created another kind of organization because for one thing, Marx lived in a part of Europe that had undergone a certain kind of development where there was such a thing that they call bourgeois democracy or democratic capitalism. But where Lenin lived in Russia, it was a semi-feudal situation where you had very strong remnants of feudalism and domination of the society by a kind of nobility, in fact, a nobility. And so there were none of the democratic freedoms that one would assume existed in the white world, like in Germany and France and England and some of the other places. So he recognized that the power of the state, and that you have to have a particular kind of organization, that the state was not going to permit this new force to come to power, that you had to have a particular kind of organization that was capable of defending itself from the state, of protecting itself from the state, of having the kind of discipline that was necessary, iron will, to actually contend with the organization of the state, to crush the state, and then to exercise state power once that status has been crushed, to help to form the state of the oppressed, the state of the workers. This is what Lenin said, and I agree with that. We agree with that nobody's going to surrender this thing to us, and because we intend to actually have power, we say that we have to have an organization that's capable, that first of all recognizes the total anti-democratic nature of the social system that we live with, and recognizing that, giving it no respect at all in terms of it having some redeeming qualities, recognizing that there is no democracy here for us, that we have to have a certain kind of organization capable of fighting and struggling with that state and then taking power. And so the organizational form that was developed is one that's called democratic centralism. And democratic centralism is the main or the principal or the primary form of organization of the African People's Socialist Party. And as I said, it's not just something, a form of party organization that we have used, but virtually every other revolutionary organization that has come into being subsequent to the Russian Revolution has utilized democratic centralism as the main basic principle of organization. I just want to read this briefly from the Chinese Communist Party. It was written by a man named Liu Chao-ki. I think that was his name, Liu Chao-ki. And he's writing about the Chinese Communist Party. And he says, our party is not simply the aggregate of its membership. It is a unified organic body established according to a definite principle. It is a combination of leaders and followers. It is an integration of the party headquarters, as to say, the Central Committee, the party organizations at all levels, and the broad membership constituted according to a definite principle of inter-party democratic centralism. You don't have this in what has been sent to you. So just to have a group of people is not enough. And he states further that 3 party members in a factory or a village do not necessarily constitute a party organization. They must be organized according to the principles of democratic centralism. Like we've got in certain places, we've got a number of party members there, but they're not necessarily a party organization. They may love the party, they may work really hard and what have you, but say they have to be organized according to the principles of democratic centralism. Under ordinary conditions, one of the 3 should be the group leader, and the other 2 the members of the group, so that in all activities there will be a leader and 2 followers. Only then can this group become a party organization. This type of organization generates new strength. The strength of the proletariat lies in organization. Organization is critical. So you got a group of people, all of them love the party. All of them love Malcolm X. All of them got posters of Huey P. Newton up on the wall. And all of them go out and do certain kinds of things all the time, but they're not a party organization until leadership has been delegated, elected. There's leadership, and then there are others who are organized in relationship to that leadership. That's democratic centralism. And it's important for us to say this because the party is an organization of leaders, for one thing. That's why it's important for every individual to go out with a burning spear, because all of us lead. And when we go out into the newspaper, into the communities with this newspaper, we'll function as leaders. We're taking a political line, that most of the people don't have. We're taking political organization that most of the people don't have. We go into a housing project in Chicago and we take just an ordinary project dweller, a connection with Africa, a connection with African people who are in various other places, a connection with the world at large, a connection with revolutionary movements every place. This is the kind of leadership that an individual with one single newspaper exercises in our day-to-day work. We do that on the job, we do that on our campuses, we do that in the prison wing that we are located in. So party leadership is a critical thing in the party. We cannot win. We understand that without having genuine leadership, we cannot win. And so we organize, recognizing that, and we create democratic centralism as a fundamental thing. So we organize in a certain way. We say, as laid down in the party constitution, this is, I'm reading again from the Chinese document, democratic centralism means centralism on the basis of democracy and democracy under centralized leadership. It is both democratic and centralized. It reflects the relationship between the leadership and the followers, between higher and lower party organizations, between individual party members and the party as a whole, and between the party's central committee and the party's organizations at all levels on the one hand, and the rank and file party members on the other. This is what democratic centralism does. It reflects this a really powerful kind of relationship that we have on different levels. Why do we say that party centralism is centralism based on democracy? It means that the leading bodies of the party are elected by the membership on a democratic basis and enjoy their confidence. It means that the directives and resolutions of the party are centralized from the rank and file upward on a democratic basis, as well as decided by them or their representatives, and are then persistently maintained and carried out by the leadership in conjunction with the rank and file. The authority of a leading body of the party is given by the party membership. Therefore, it is capable, that is to say, the leadership is capable of exercising the power of centralized leadership on behalf of the membership in managing all party affairs and of commanding the obedience of its law organizations and of the party membership. Law and order within the party is built on the principle of the subordination of the individual to the organization, the subordination of the minority to the majority, the subordination of lower organizations to higher organizations, and the subordination of all the constituent party organizations to the Central Committee. What is a constituent organization? That is APSP, that is NPDUM, that is all of the others that we don't necessarily name that often in terms of APDEP and APEDF and ANWO. These are constituent organizations that we're talking about. This means that the party's centralism is based on democracy instead of separated from democracy. It is not individual autocracy. Let's say I'm the chairman of the party, but I don't have some kind of individual autocracy. Where do I get my authority? I get my authority, first of all, because I'm elected by the membership of the party. We have a Congress. Used to be every 3 years, now it's every 5 years. And when this Congress comes together, this is the membership, this is the base of the party. When the party Congress comes together, it is that point where the party leadership has been turned over to the membership of the party. The membership has discussed, struggled over what has been submitted to it from the chair in the form of political report that explains and defines the world and our role, our relationship to it, the work that we're doing to forward the agenda. And then we go to the membership at the Congress, and the Congress, we send this to the membership 3 or 4 months even before the Congress. The membership has an opportunity to go through this, debate this, struggle around it. And when it comes to the Congress, the membership votes its confidence in this leadership, voting for me, voting for whomever else is on the ballot to be the leadership, voting to accept or not accept the document that we said represents our view, our direction in the form of the political report, pass resolutions, offer up resolutions within this process, vote on these resolutions, and this then becomes the means by which the party has acquired its direction. Its mandates come from this thing, from the people in the party. The party has actually published these things so that it goes out into the world and everybody can debate it. Of course, only the members of the party can be the force that will decide and vote on this. And so like our resolutions, our mandates, all of this come from this process by the membership of the party. And then that authorizes these decisions, authorizes then the leadership of the party to be able to carry out the will of the membership and to do that in a very serious, dedicated way. This is where you have centralized leadership that comes from democracy. This is centralized leadership based on democratic will of the members of the party. And at that point, there is no, I thought it was a good idea then, but I don't want to do it, or there is not none of that. There's no wishy-washiness, etc. And this is the means by which the will of the party membership is being exercised by the leadership of the party. We've been authorized then to lead the party and to call on the party to follow that leadership, to require the party to follow that leadership based on that kind of relationship. So I just wanted to share that, and that's one aspect of it. And then what I just want to say is looking at the study And everyone should have, from the party's organizational manual, everyone should have access to the organizational manual. And we go here in the manual, it reads on the first page, democratic centralism is a system according to which all leading committees of the party, from the unit bureaus up to the highest committees, are elected by the membership or delegates of the given party organization. Every elected or appointed party committee must report regularly on its activity to its higher party organization. It must give an account of its work. That is to say, accountability is a critical aspect of what it is we're talking about. You can't have leadership if there is no accountability related to it. The lower party organization and all party members of the given party organization have the duty of carrying out the decisions of the higher party committees and the National Central Committee. In other words, the decisions of the National Central Committee and the higher party committees are binding upon the lower bodies. Party discipline is observed by party members and party organizations because only those who agree with the program of the African People's Socialist Party and the National Central Committee can become members of the party. And I think this is really important for us to understand, because the party can demand discipline within its ranks, not like the Crips might do, or not like the CIA, because you don't have to be in the African People's Socialist Party. We don't jump on somebody because they're in the wrong neighborhood most of the time. But the thing is that it's unity. It is a discipline that is based on unity, unity with the principles of the party, unity with African internationalism. This is the thing that holds the party together. This is the thing that allows the party to demand discipline, unity with the resolutions, unity with the protocols, unity with the mandates that come out of our Congress and the various means by which the organization determines what this direction is going to be. And that's what it is. And if you don't unite with that, then the principal thing to do is to get out the party, is to submit a resignation, say, I do not unite with this, instead of trying to stay in the party, playing a wrecker's role, acting like the police or some kind of other agent that can only be there for the purpose of disrupting the party organization. So we say, the minority carries out the decisions of the majority. That's subordination of the minority to the majority. And that's not a little thing, that's a serious thing. I mean, and what can be more democratic? Of course, the thing that makes this work well is that everybody in the party recognizes the responsibility to study and to understand African internationalism, to study and understand the decisions that's been made by the party, because you can't have a democratic will if you don't understand what the hell is happening in the party. So that's why political education and self-development is a critical aspect of it. But the minority carries out the decisions of the majority. And that means the subordination of the minority to the majority in the African People's Socialist Party. And party questions are discussed by the members of the party and by the party organization until such time as the decision is made by the party committee or organization. And after the decision is made by the leading committees, by the National Central Committee, or by the National Party Congress, this decision must be unreservedly carried out, even if a minority of the party organization is in disagreement with it. And it doesn't mean that when we go out in the world, we made a decision. You may have been in a minority position when a decision was made, but you don't go out saying, okay, I'm doing this because they said it, I don't agree with it and what have you. No, to actually have democratic centralism makes the assumption that you carry out, you work hard, as hard or harder than anybody else to make sure that the decision of the majority has carried out. That's what democracy is in the party. I mean, it's not just you. If the party has made this decision, then you don't say, well, y'all made the decision or they made the decision, I'm just hanging around. Everybody jumps in and carry it out. And that's the thing that makes the party powerful and give it a capacity that most other organization cannot possibly have. The local party organization, the units, the regions have the full initiative right and duty to decide on local questions within the limits of the general policies and decisions of the party. On the basis of democratic centralism, all lower party organizations are subordinate to the higher bodies. Regional committees are subordinate to the National Central Committee. Party units, block, shop, town are subordinate to the local party committee, and the local party committees are subordinate to the regional committees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how that works. And all decisions of the National Central Committee must be fulfilled by the whole party, and all decisions of the regional conventions and the regional committee must be fulfilled by the local party organizations of that region. So I think it's, I wanted to just, make some statements about that. And also, when we talk about struggle, discussion, and freedom of criticism, for example, on page 3 in this document, we say the free discussions on questions of party policy, on individual party organizations, or in the party as a whole is the fundamental right and responsibility of every party member as a principal point of party democracy. And some people are frightened by that. Sometimes leaders are, but that's the right of the people in the party. Only on the basis of internal party democracy is it possible to develop African internationalist self-criticism and to strengthen party discipline, which must be conscious and not mechanical. Conscious discipline, not mechanical discipline. There is complete freedom of discussion in the party until a majority decision has been made by the unit or the leading committee, after which discussions must cease and the decision must be carried out by every organization and individual member of the party. It is clear, however, that the basic principles and decisions, such as, for example, excuse me, the theory of African internationalism and the program of the African People's Socialist Party cannot be questioned by the party. We cannot imagine a discussion, for example, questioning the correctness of the leading role of the laboring masses in the struggle against colonialism, or the necessity of the leadership of the African independence movement in the struggle for socialism. And this is, yes, really important. We do not question the theory of the revolutionary overthrow of colonialism and the total destruction of the imperialist ruling class. We do not question the correctness of the revolutionary theory of the international class struggle as laid down by the theory of African internationalism. We do not question the political correctness of the decisions, resolutions, etc., of the party Congress or the Central Committee after they are ratified. Otherwise, every undercover agent of the capitalist, colonialist, bourgeoisie, and every sympathizer of the ideological imperialists will have the opportunity to continually raise their counter-revolutionary theories in the units, local party organizations, etc. This will make the members spend time and energy in discussing such questions, thus not only disrupting the work of the party, but also creating confusion among the less experienced and trained elements of the party. And as a matter of fact, this is the favorite tactic of enemies of the party, who are always disrupting and causing confusion in the name of democracy. And this is one of the things that played a fundamental crippling role in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee in its last days, because people would tie the organization up, with the craziest kinds of discussions and, just all kinds of madness happening in the meetings, etc. And so that's, like I said, things that agents do. And however, this does not mean that problems dealt with in such decisions and how best to apply these decisions are not to be clarified in the party organizations through discussion. On the contrary, most thorough discussions for the purpose of making every party member understand these resolutions and decisions and how to apply them is essential for effective party work. For those of you who are participating online and electronically in this discussion, Comrade K-Fing, Omali K-Fing, happens to be in town right now, and he's in this room where I am, and I was in discussing this part of the issue of democratic centralism, reminded of when I first met Comrade K-Fing, when he had invited me and other comrades from the party to come to Atlanta, Georgia. And they were dealing with the struggle of an African, two women, Cheryl Todd and Desi X. Woods, who had been hitchhiking to a prison, Reedsville prison, from Atlanta to visit Cheryl Todd's brother, and had run into all kinds of complications, including being picked up by a white man named Ronnie Horn, who was to give them a lift and actually pulled a gun and tried to rape them, and Desi took his gun, killed him, that kind of stuff. But when I met K-Fing, these African who were, it was a time of the struggle where a lot of Africans were engaged in this stuff they call party building. And this is after they were actually engaged in building this whole white new left kind of political parties. And they had these meetings. All these people from the community had started coming to these meetings in Atlanta because they wanted to free that sister, Desi Woods, and Cheryl Todd. And what would happen is these white leftists in black disguise would create so much confusion in the meetings. They were debating Trotsky and Stalin, and people just wanted to free Desi Woods and then Cheryl Todd, and all these esoteric questions above the heads of the people and stuff like that. They just tore the meetings up, and they were going to destroy the whole struggle to free Desi Woods and Cheryl Todd. And that was one of the things that was one of the interventions that we made when I first met Comrade K-Fing. We busted it up and what have you, but it's a typical common strategy for various kinds of agents. And so all the time they won't be the police. It could be Bob Avakian's organization. It could be anybody in black skin that wants to break up and destroy the capacity of the African working class to forge a revolutionary movement that would put power in the hands of the working class. So democratic centralism is critical. Our organization has to be united top to bottom. We have to be so tight. In fact, people often have referred to us as automatons. You ask one something in London, and then you get the same answer you got from somebody in Tampa, right? So that shows that they're automatons. That just shows that we are united. And that's the thing that the oppressor cannot tolerate, to see this kind of solid rock unity, steel unity, cannot break this unity of the African People's Socialist Party, cannot go to one member of the African People's Socialist Party and get one answer, and then go to another member of the African People's Socialist Party to get another answer. Can't split the organization like that, because all of us are united around, basic principles and the decisions that we make. So we say, we talk about democratic centralism, party discipline. That's on page 3 of the document. It says, and this is from, as I said, the party's organizational manual. Party discipline is based on African internationalism, the class and national consciousness of its members. Party discipline is based on African internationalism, the class and the national consciousness of its members, on the convictions that without the minority accepting and carrying out the decisions of the majority, without the subordination of the lower party organizations to the higher committees, there can be no strong, solid, steeled party able to lead the poor, impoverished masses. Party discipline is based on the acceptance of the party program and rules of discipline, and in the confidence of the membership in the National Central Committee. There can be no discipline in the party if there is no conscious and voluntary submission on the basis of a thorough understanding of the general party program and the decisions of the party. Only conscious discipline can be truly iron discipline. To assist in the discipline of the party, we created some explicit rules of party discipline in 1974, and you can find these in every issue of the Burning Spear. Here are rules of discipline. And this is really important kind of discussion, because we've had people who, on one hand, seem to be the most revolutionary, persons in the party, ready to confront the police, ready to do all these other kinds of things, but always violated democratic centralism, because we've already made certain kinds of decisions. We've created certain kinds of policies and organizations and committees to carry out those policies, but this person, once brought into some role, finds a more revolutionary thing in this thing to go out and carry out something on his own will, and he will do it boldly, and he would do it with great confidence, and he would do it with magnificent flair and get in the newspapers, etc. But he's violated democratic centralism and will not take us where we're trying to go, and we will not have built the organization that we're supposed to build. We see that all the time. And what that represents, in fact, is disunity with the party's line, because the party's line is reflected in the fact that we did create the Black is Back coalition, and this is how we're going to carry out a certain aspect of the work, not to do this other thing that you just came up with. The party's line is reflected in the fact that we did create the gym, that we did create a Tyrone Lewis Community Gym as one front through which we would have a particular relationship with the masses of African working people that strengthens our presence and our organizational capacity overall. The party's line is reflected in the fact that we did create the different components of this to carry out that particular mission, not for somebody to come into that particular thing that's supposed to be carrying out the party's line, and they're going to be more revolutionary than the party's line, has that particular entity to be. I don't care how bold they are and courageous they can be and how willing to get shot by the police, that kind of stuff they are. The fact is that they violated democratic centralism, and that's disunity with the line of the party. The line of the party is reflected in the fact that we created those particular institutions through particular kinds of things. We did that before we even knew your name. We did that without any consideration that you were ever going to come along as an individual. That's the thing, and that's the thing that gives us strength and power and makes it possible for us to win, you see? And so the thing is that discipline is based on unity and conscious discipline, unity with the principles and the determination that's come from the party's leadership, etc. So we say, why do African internationalists attach so much importance to discipline? Because without discipline, there can be no unity of will, no unity of action. The party is united in will and action. Our party is the organized and most advanced sector of the poor, impoverished, laboring African masses. The party is the vanguard of the toiling masses in the international class war. In this international class war, there is the international imperialist class with its henchmen and helpers, such as pacifists, reformist leaders, such as the NAACP, SCLC, PUSH, etc., on one side, and the toiling masses and our allies on the other. International class war is bitter. The enemy is powerful. It has all the means of deceit and suppression, armed forces, National Guard, police, courts, movies, television, radio, press, school, churches, etc. In order to combat and defeat this powerful enemy, The army of the poor and the impoverished laboring African masses must have a skilled, trained general staff. That's the African People's Socialist Party, which is united in action and has one will. One will. United in action and has one will. How can an army fight against the army of the enemy if every soldier in the army is allowed to question and even disobey orders of superior officers? What would happen in a war if, for example, the general staff orders an attack and one section decides to obey and go into battle? Another thinks that it is wrong to attack the enemy at this time and stays away from the battle. And a third section decides to quit the trenches and to retreat to another position instead of going forward. And this happens, comrade. This is one of the great struggles that we've had with one comrade who has been in and out of the party and on the ranks of the party dashingly and all this kind of stuff, but absolutely somebody who breaks the discipline in the most disciplined way, breaks the party in the most disciplined way, breaks the discipline of the party, demands discipline for everybody else in this undisciplined action that they are involved in doing. Let's take, for example, from the anti-colonial struggle within current U.S. borders. The regional committee decides that a demonstration should be held against the death penalty or the impending execution of some worker or oppressed African national, and gives directives to the local party organization to mobilize the whole membership to get the greatest possible number of African people to the demonstration. The place and the date of the demonstration is set by the regional committee. One local party organization, after receiving decisions, works out plans to mobilize the masses and activates its whole base to work for the demonstration. Another local party organization does not think that the issue is very important and neglects to mobilize the membership. A third local party organization decides that the time set by the regional committee is not the best one and instructs its members to mobilize at a later hour. A fourth LPO decides to come at an earlier hour. What kind of demonstration would it be, and what would the masses think and say about such a party? And this is the kind of thing that happens to us all the time, because we can't do it because I got a birthday party, or my child has a birthday party, or I got to coach my child's basketball game, or any other kind of thing, and let's do it on this day based on those kinds of things. This is really defies the steel unity, the iron discipline that the party has to have to make the revolution. The revolution, the party cadre, people in the party distinguish ourselves as being that force that will do everything in order to win. And that requires us to be united. Our party cannot lead the masses if there is not unity in action. Unity of will and action can be achieved only if all the members of the party act as one and are disciplined. If each party member should decide which decision of the party he or she wants to carry out. If each member carries out only those decisions which he or she likes and ignores those with which there was disagreement, it would be impossible to lead the oppressed masses in the struggle against the U.S. domestic colonialism and capitalism. An army with that kind of leadership would surely be defeated. Unified opinion is essential for unity. Unified opinion is essential for unity in action and for successful work of the African People's Socialist Party. What would happen if each party member interprets a political issue individually and bring his individual opinion to the masses? The workers in a factory or the people of a community would get as many opinions on certain questions as there are party members in the factory or the community. The unified opinion, which is hammered out in the party by discussion, is necessary in order that the party be able to lead the masses in their constant struggles. So I'm gonna, what is criticism, self-criticism? See, some people get a little anxious because they see temporarily forces like the Black Lives Matter. They rush out to every demonstration, or they demonstrate on every occasion. I know I'm reminded that in Tampa, Florida, there was a demonstration a couple of weeks ago that we participated in. I think the relatives of Emmett Till and the mother of Tamir Rice and of Carrie Ball and you know, all kinds of forces were out there, and Black Lives Matter was out there as well. And we went to this demonstration, and there were certain agreements that had been made about what we were going to do with the action. So in the middle of that, somebody from Black Lives Matter approached some of our forces and said, let's get our cars, right, and block the entrance to the state fair, you know, and to disrupt the whole thing. And so Comrade Ghazi said, well, let me check with the leadership of the party and see if that's cool or not, because we didn't plan to go out there and block the thing and go to jail. It's not that we are less militant than anybody else. That's not the plan. So when Ghazi got back and said, so the guy says, oh, what? You got to call the chairman. Is that your daddy? Right? I mean, so there's something really disgraceful about the fact that you got to check with leadership before you take an action. It's a form of anarchy. It's a form of police thing. It's any kind of thing that is possible. It's something that says you cannot be united, and you cannot, that leadership is of no value, that we don't have to have leadership. We just do what we want to do. But the Black Lives Matter, there's nothing, I've never seen anything on their agenda saying they want to take power. In fact, they say they want the powerful to tell them what it's going to do, right? That's the fact. That's the big debate we had. You know, they want to find out what's in the hearts of the powerful. We're talking about taking out the hearts of the powerful. You understand? And so we have completely different objectives. And even when you look at this election that we're talking about right now, there are people who having conniptions, just like they did for Barack Hussein Obama, because they have not planned to take power. They had no plan to take power before Obama showed up. So when Obama showed up, wow, this was their avenue to getting something, right? And so everybody started rushing toward Obama, and that became the solution. For us in the party, we said, hell, Obama can disrupt our capacity to take power. Our objective is to take power. And there's something that's happened here that's trying to keep us off the tracks to take power. Now you have this election. Trump is a fascist, and he may very well be a fascist. Hitler was a fascist, but even time Hitler was being fascist and stuff, white people were lynching black people in this country in a democratic fashion. There was no fascism. It was democratic, you know, capitalism that was lynching us and what have you. So there are people who are upset, and then they're saying, well, Trump is a fascist, and all the white people who go with Trump are fascists. Then you have, they say, so, and people saying, well, Hillary Clinton, she represents the bourgeoisie. She's taking money from the banks, et cetera, et cetera. Therefore, we go to the white man, Bernie Sanders, because a lot of white people are following Bernie Sanders because he says he's a socialist. And he uses the word revolution. But from our perspective, to take power, what the hell does it matter if this white guy is saying this and this other white guy is saying that, or the Democrat and Republican? It only matters to us as it relates to how it affects our ability to take power. So it doesn't mean that we won't participate in the election or anything like that. It means for us, the objective is to take power, and we make every decision by Bernie Sanders, by Trump, by Hillary Clinton, based on where our relationship to them affects the struggle for African people, for the political revolutionary vanguard, advanced detachment of the African working class to seize power. And that's the thing. That's the thing that makes it different from us and all the other discussion that you hear going on. And sometimes they get esoteric, and they are highly scientific and highly brilliant discussions of inanities. So for us, the question is taking power for our people. And for us, it's the position that first of all, nobody should govern and rule over Africans except Africans. And then secondly, no Africans should do that except the African working class. And then third, the instrument of the African working class being able to do that is this advanced detachment, this general staff, which is the African People's Socialist Party, which is why democratic centralism is so important for us. So we say the most important criterion for loyalty to our party and to the struggle for our people for liberation is the active fight for party policy. In order to achieve this, it is an absolute responsibility of the party members to take part in discussions of party policy, to be involved in criticism and self-criticism, and adhere to rules of party discipline, to be involved in criticism and self-criticism, not to be spectators and bystanders. And this is one of the worst things you can see when struggles have happened in the party. It looks like a debate or argument or struggle between two individuals because everybody else being liberal and not wanting to take any kind of position, not wanting to offend somebody who is their friend or who they get along with quite well, or who might offer up certain kinds of support for them under certain circumstances, just sit down and act like nothing is going on. The thing is that we have to fight for party policy. We have positions around these questions. This makes us strong in so many different ways, because if you cannot fight inside your own organization for policy, an organization that's about revolution, then how the hell are you going to step outside of your organization and go fight with white power? How are you going to debate this question with Hillary? You'll be worse than that little idiot who was talking about he was wanting to find out what was in her heart. You don't want to offend anybody. You don't want to hurt her feelings. You know, one of the striking things, one of the things that the Nation of Islam, the old Nation of Islam, I'm not talking about this crew here, that used to be so significant that they quite clearly recognized. All of the Black Power movement understood this quite clearly. To have the white people in their meetings, a white person could step into a room and change. A white baby could be brought to a meeting by his nanny, his Negro nanny, and the whole discussion would change based on the fact that somebody white is there. And so you can't say nothing now. That's liberalism of the worst kind. Of course, in many instances, it is something that we learn to do because white people kill you if you said something differently, etc. But now you have an opportunity to express our views, our opinions, and you don't have an opinion based on whether it's going to offend white people. You have an opinion based on whether it's correct or incorrect, but based on whether it's going to advance the struggle for our power. That's the critical thing that we have to win. And so if you can't engage in criticism and self-criticism inside the party itself, you damn sure can't go out there and engage in criticism against a hostile social system that has a history of murdering us, that kind of thing. You have to be able to do that. And you take the striking example when Congo became officially independent, and the guy who I think he might have been a prince or king, something, represented Belgium at that ceremony. And he stood up and made some kind of statement. This is being broadcast all over Congo and perhaps some other places around the world, of how much the Belgians had done for the poor people of the Congo, etc. Here you're talking about Belgium occupying Congo, which is 80 times larger than Belgium. 80 times larger than Belgium. Belgium that has killed and murdered so many people in Congo that although Congo is the same size, more or less, of India, which has 1 million people, or more than 1 billion people, Congo has something like 50 million people. And so he's going to say this kind of stuff. And Patrice Lumumba, and people say this was the thing that was his death sentence, when he stood up and walked up to, he wasn't even scheduled to talk, and then criticized Belgium and the king or prince or whomever it was, I can't remember now, who made that statement. Says the heroism, said, you know, what Belgium has taken our people through, you know, the murder, the brutality, and what have you. It's the heroism and the struggles of the people of Congo that is responsible for this day of independence, etc. But nobody else, in fact, people were shocked that Lumumba would even say that. How are you going to be Patrice Lumumba if you can't even engage in criticism, self-criticism in your own organization? How are you going to be? This is That didn't have to happen. The Belgian troops were still there. The Belgian troops still had all the armies, the guns and everything. And they made this statement, and Lumumba stood up there and criticized Belgium right in the face of the king or whomever this guy was, and over, you know, the airwaves and in the face of the whole international imperialist community. Lumumba stepped forward. There was no way. If you can't engage in criticism, self-criticism, if you can't fight for policy inside your own damn organization, I'm damn sure not going to send you to be the one who would have to respond to the king's statement about whether or not African people are free or not. You're not going to be the one that we send to President Trump or to President Hillary or to President or that we would have sent to President Obama. Because if you can't engage with your own comrades who are on the same trajectory as you, then there's no chance that you're going to struggle with this guy at all. So I'll stop in a few minutes so that we can have discussion. There's just a couple of things I want to say. The most important criterion for loyalty to our party and to the struggle for our people, for liberation is the active fight for party policy. In order to achieve this, it is an absolute responsibility of the party members to take part in discussions of party policy, to be involved in criticism and self-criticism, and adhere to rules of party discipline. This is the only place you get to have these critical discussions of revolutionary, of politics. White folks don't allow you to do that. You can't do that in the NAACP. You can't do that in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party don't even have on the agenda anything that has anything to do with you, except unless you're one of the boats on the, how do they say, that when the high tides come along, raises everybody. You don't have anything to do with that. Criticism, self-criticism is the most important means for developing African internationalist consciousness and thereby strengthening discipline and democratic centralism. Criticism, self-criticism helps to discover all mistakes, deviations, and shortcomings that separate us from the masses and to correct them. It helps us to improve the work of the party organizations, to smash liberalism, subjectivism, and bureaucracy, to expose the agents of the enemy in our ranks. The policy of criticism, self-criticism, is referred to as the thump soft policy within our party. As a revolutionary, and the reason we say thump soft, I want to be clear on this because some people want to make this mean not struggle. We struggle, and we struggle seriously. But it says something about the character of the struggle. All the struggles that we're involved in the party makes the assumption of the people we're struggling with. People who want to advance the interests of the party. They're not the enemy. It's not an antagonistic contradiction. It's a contradiction that can be resolved through discussion and through persuasion and education, which is different from the kinds of struggle that we have with the enemies. But we've seen white left organizations that have the most ruthless, unprincipled kinds of struggle, and sometimes not white left organizations who would have struggles that didn't do anything to advance the struggle. And when I say advance the struggle, like I've heard and sometimes seen us write that self-criticism means that you have to offer up a solution. You might not know the damn solution. You just know that's wrong. And you have to be willing to struggle with it. Thump softly is not another way of offering up liberalism and saying do not struggle sharply and seriously with contradictions. So we say that as a revolutionary party, the APSP is representative of the new and progressive historical forces moving to replace the dying and reactionary forces. While we represent the emerging new forces, we must continue to struggle against the old dying and reactionary forces, for they are still stronger than we are, although they are dying. Indeed, revolution itself is a part of a historical process whereby the will of the people is asserted upon historical forces in a scientific and organized fashion in an effort to influence and escalate the development of the new and the obliteration of the old. In fact, the party functions as a form of fertilizer, if you will, on this process, growing the new. Inside the party, there's also a struggle between the old and the new. The struggle between the African People's Socialist Party is the response to the struggle within the African People's Socialist Party is the response to internal contradictions. There are two types of contradictions. The contradictions between African people and our enemy, imperialism, are antagonistic contradictions and can only be resolved through the ultimate destruction of one or the other. And this is critical. This is not a little statement, because this is where the Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, Trump, and all of this stuff is revolved, that somehow people want to treat this antagonistic contradiction that exists between the white ruling class and imperialism and our people as a non-antagonistic contradiction, or they want to treat only one representative of white power as the antagonistic side, depending on whether they say nigger or they say build a wall, and then they would treat the other side as though it's not an antagonistic part of a contradiction. That's a contradiction. The only way we're going to resolve this contradiction, one of us going to have to be destroyed, either imperialist forces or the forces of revolution. And we say that the forces of revolution have the responsibility to destroy the other side. And so because it's an antagonistic contradiction. It's not the contradiction that we may have with people who we know, who we work with, who have political differences with us, and we work with them, we function in coalitions with them. But we say these are non-antagonistic contradictions for the most part, certainly at this time in history. And so we struggle here through persuasion and education is the primary means that we use. Doesn't mean it's not sharp struggle or anything like that, because there is a contradiction, but it's not an antagonistic contradiction. The contradiction between some people who we work with, who unite with one form of imperialism or another in the form of a Bernie Sanders, etc. Our contradiction with Sanders and the Democratic Party and white power is absolutely antagonistic. The struggle that we have with some of these other forces is not antagonistic, though we will struggle. It's not antagonistic at this point. It could develop into an antagonistic contradiction in the future, but that's not what it is. And I just think it's important for us to understand this, even when we look at this whole electoral process, you see. And let me just say, the struggle is for power. And even though we understand something is antagonistic, for example, I believe there's some legitimacy in the concept of vaccinations. I don't know how effectively it's done or anything like that. What I mean is that the immune system, we know, can be strengthened by introducing to it certain antagonistic things that it has to learn to fight off, and it becomes stronger as a consequence of that. That's what the whole concept of giving somebody smallpox or some other kind of vaccination, a little tiny bit of it, because then the immune system learns to fight it off. So I'm saying that you can introduce, possibly from a revolutionary standpoint, we can have a strategy, a tactic of engaging this powerful enemy in a fashion that's designed to infect it with a virus that it cannot get rid of. For example, if we do certain kind of electoral work, it's not because we think that the election is the way or that this contradiction has become non-antagonistic. What we do is try to use the system against itself. We use the system against itself to advance the revolution, to advance into the body politic, the virus that can contribute to killing it, as opposed to something that would help to get it to survive. What they do is they vaccinate themselves against the disease of Black power, when they can get Negroes to come in and play a role. When they can get Obama to say, I'm opposed to reparations, that's a form of vaccination. That's a form of strengthening the system. Now, all of them can be opposed to reparations because this Negro has done it. This Negro has come from the African population and has the potential of destroying it, right? And then giving it, arming it in a certain way to defend itself against what it is that we're trying to do. That's all I'm saying. And I'm saying that, anyway, so The contradiction within our party, however, a non-antagonistic contradiction, must be resolved through education and reasoning. The struggle between the African people and our enemies is the struggle for our national independence on the one hand and against imperialism, colonialism, and neocolonialism on the other. It is a struggle between the oppressed and the oppressor, between the rich exploiting slave master and the poor exploited slaves. Our party is an instrument of African people. Its purpose is to lead the struggle to resolve the contradictions between our people and the enemy. Contradictions that can only be resolved through smashing the enemy to oblivion. For the motive force of our enemy's existence is exploitation and oppression. That's the only thing it exists for. It has no other basis in existence except exploitation and oppression. And when it, listen, and I'm just saying this for the Bernie Sanders people who may be even on this discussion. If you got somebody who's for socialism, as Sanders says he is, and for revolution, as Sanders says he is, first thing you recognize is that all of them who says that the Black Panther Party was the greatest threat to the internal security of the United States of America since the Civil War was right. That Black people, African masses, are critical to the defeat of white power. That's just it. That's just the way that is. Sanders knows that. All of them. That's why they build an army. That's why police in every community, they know that. When Sanders is talking about, when they force Sanders to say Black Lives Matter, he's talking about, he's talking about the fact that the police recognize African people as a target that has to be contained or wiped out in order for the system to survive. He knows that, even if the little silly people who are running around saying hands up, don't shoot, don't understand it. Sanders understands that, but he's not calling for that. Sanders understands when he talks about $15 per hour, you know, over a number of years. What kind of socialist is that? I'm saying this. I'm saying that Sanders is not simply somebody who is wrong. He is devious, and he is a part of an attack on socialism to get in front of the masses, because socialism is what? Socialism is the workers actually coming to political power, controlling the means of production, the armed power of the African workers. That's socialism. He's going to say, I'm a socialist because I want to give Negro, I want to give people, not us, but people, $15 an hour over a number of years, when the actual objective of socialism is to take the whole thing. That's somebody who's trying to get in front of the whole revolutionary process that would take the whole thing and put a cap on it and say, the only thing we can give you over a number of years is $15 an hour. And that's to protect the system and not to take it down. And when he says that no to reparations for African people, and socialists understand that the big contest between the workers and the ruling class is that for stolen value of labor power. That's the thing that the workers are struggling for within the context of socialism. How can he be against reparations for Black people if socialism is for the return, recapture the theft of the stolen value from our labor? He's talking about a white socialism. He's talking about protecting the white social system, and I don't give a damn what anybody says other than that. I gotta move. So all of the members of our party are united around the single need to free our people through smashing imperialism in all of its forms. The contradictions within our party then are contradictions which affect our ability to liberate. They should be resolved differently than those between the people and the enemy. All contradictions must be struggled against. The difference is how different contradictions must be struggled against differently. To struggle successfully against contradiction, we must know the nature of the contradiction. We must know whether a contradiction is antagonistic, as between the people and the enemy, or non-antagonistic, as within the people's party. Such contradiction must be struggled against, and since there are contradictions within our party, we must wage incessant internal struggle. Our purpose for struggle within the party, however, is not to destroy, but to unite. But sometime in the process of destroying, we have to cast out the cancer that might have been introduced into the party by the other side through its ideas or through the selfish and individual aims of the person who has come into the party. So I just wanted to say that, and then just a brief kind of summation. We say democratic centralism is the main organizational principle enabling the party to put African internationalism into practice. It is very exciting because it empowers the people. It is as a theory that demands that we change the world. African internationalism requires its adherents to be members of the African People's Socialist Party. Democratic centralism is centralism on the basis of democracy, and democracy under centralized leadership. Democratic centralism is practiced under voluntary unity and voluntary discipline with African internationalism and the guiding principle of the guiding principles of the African People's Socialist Party. Democratic centralism is the dictatorship of the proletariat inside the party. Democratic centralism, that's a critical point to be made. Because as most of you may know, that we are talking about defeating the hidden dictatorship of the bourgeoisie. Is hidden from most people. For the Africans, it ain't hidden. And when you say dictatorship, we ain't talking about single rule as they teach you in your civic classes in 7th grade. The dictatorship is rule without regard for law. And white people is hidden often from white people. That's why it's called a hidden dictatorship. But for Africans, the dictatorship is clear. Constitution doesn't mean a damn thing. That's why they shoot Africans in the back in public. And the white people even support it sometimes. And that's why they commit all kinds of offenses. They say you're supposed to have a right to freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, and they beat you to death. In every community in this country, they do that. They got hidden secret prisons where they stuff Africans in Chicago. They got visible prisons where they stuff Africans in other places around the country. That is dictatorship. It's without regard for law. Regardless of what the law is, Negroes going to jail. Public policy in this country is police confinement of the African population, jailings, killing, that kind of stuff. So that is the dictatorship of the bourgeoisie. That is the dictatorship of the colonial bourgeoisie. And whether it happens in Democratic Republic of Congo, whether it's happening in Haiti, that's what you're looking at, is the dictatorship of the white nationalist bourgeoisie, often carried out by its minions throughout the world. And in the communities where you live, where you got a black police chief or a black president. So the dictatorship of the proletariat is when the African working class comes to power and exercises dictatorship over those who have oppressed us all along. And when you have dictatorship of the workers, what does that mean? Dictatorship of the proletariat. It means ain't no free space, no free press for white power, no freedom of speech for the people who have oppressed us. Wow, that's so bad. You mean they're gonna have, just because they're white? No, just because their basis of their existence is exploitation and oppression. If you give them freedom of press, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, they will press, they will speak, and they will assemble for the purpose of overturning the power of the workers and imposing upon us again slavery. So that's what it's about. So the dictatorship of the proletariat has to be fought for inside the ranks of the party as well. The will of the party, the will of the African working class is protected by democratic centralism, because all kinds of people will be trying to come into the party all the time. And if we're not, if democratic centralism is not there, which is the means by which the dictatorship of the African working class is exercised inside our organization, then you think you joined the revolutionary organization, and next week what you'll find yourself doing is voting for Bernie Sanders. Democratic centralism is distinguished from bourgeois organization in that it enables the party to create a unified organic body built on single philosophical principles of unity, the unification and liberation of Africa and African people everywhere, led by the African working class. Democratic centralism allows the party to actually accomplish its goals to overturn the antagonistic contradiction of U.S. imperialist colonial control over Africa and African people everywhere. It formalizes political honesty, transparency, and integrity. And just because you are afraid of criticism and self-criticism doesn't mean it's bad. It means that you've been turned into some kind of weak-kneed, anti-human, almost entity by white power and its domination over us. That you don't have the courage, and democratic centralism liberates us, gives us a whole dynamic process. It anticipates a new society where the will of the majority of the people will be exercised through this kind of relationship, even through in the society that we're going to create itself, where people can be free and people can have honest discussions with each other without having to be afraid of talking about errors and contradictions. This is what democratic centralism is about. This is different from blaming and avoiding blame, which is what happens inside the whole bourgeoisie. Everybody's blaming, criticism is a form of blaming somebody, not solving problems. And every response to it is an attempt not to get blamed for something. People won't do something because they don't want to be blamed. As opposed to saying that, and which is what that turns into, people won't lead, won't take certain action because if they do, they might get criticized, right? And that's turning us into political cowards and things like that, and that's not what we need to be. And I've spoken too long, and I'm going to stop now and open it up for a discussion. I do say that you must not accept this as the final word, that we have a lot of stuff that we've written, a lot of stuff that's available to help us to engage in the struggle of this discussion of democratic centralism, and we should do it. It makes us stronger, and we should exercise democratic centralist principles. That's part of what this is about. There are literally scores, if not hundreds of people who are at the door of the party trying to come in. It's really critical for us to understand these questions moving forward so that we fill the ranks of the party with people who are best capable of functioning inside the party. And the other thing that's important about this too is that what we try to do in the party whenever we can is to put new forces and old forces together, because new forces bring in energy and new ideas and things like that, which is really important because you can get accustomed to doing things a certain way. And, you know, new forces have to bring new energy and what have you, and ideas. And older forces help to provide experience and knowledge and stuff like keep us on the correct line. And that's just a really important kind of thing. That's the way, it's like cell reproduction in the human body. All the old cells don't just die, you know what I mean? But the new cells are constantly coming in, and they have the advantage of the memories of the old cells and what the old cells have brought to it. And that's the process that we have now. That too, by the way, is a dialectical process that we recognize as really important in the African People's Socialist Party. So let me open it up and call on people to participate in this discussion. Uhuru. If you're muted, Uhuru, yes. Say who you are. Say who you are, please. And if you can, you know, where you're at. Uhuru. Say it again. This is who?
Angelica.
Oh, yes, Uhuru. Yes.
Uhuru, and I'm in St. Louis, and I want to really appreciate this conversation because I do realize how important just criticism is and democratic centralism. It is very important to have that type of unity and that type of discipline without being insubordinate. I just want to really appreciate this conversation. I know it's been times where I've had contradictions and I have to, you know, face this, the criticism of
Uhuru. Let me say that the petty bourgeoisie or middle class hate discipline, hate democratic centralism. In fact, there are some people who are not in the party and who on the fringes of the party or do certain kind of work for the party. No matter the real reason they are not, have not come into the party, we may not want them, frankly, to tell you the truth. Some we really don't want. What's up?
Did somebody mute? Someone just came on and
just mute, please. Yeah. But the reason is because of hatred of democratic centralism. In fact, if you remember, there was one comrade who used to be in the party in Washington, D.C., used to be in the party, but who stated that please mute, everybody mute, please. If you're not talking, mute. Please mute. But, you know, she stated quite frankly, she liked everything about the party except democratic centralism. And that's because she wanted to be able to do what she wanted to do.
All callers are muted and they can unmute themselves.
All right. Anybody else? Thank you so much, Angelica from St. Louis.
You will have to unmute yourself to talk. To talk. What is it? *5? *6 to unmute. We do have a question from YouTube.
So what is the question, please?
Dre Star. When we take our freedom back, what will we do about foreign forces that took over some African cities such as Egypt, and about European influence?
I want to talk about democratic centralism, if you don't mind. Yeah, I mean, democratic centralism means that we're Uhuru. Yes, I appreciate the question. It's an outstanding, ongoing question. But I know I appreciate the question. That's an important question, but there's some organizational principles that I really want us to work with right now. And so I'd like to talk about democratic centralism. And I appreciate Brother Dre out of Houston. We'll get to that question, but not in this session. Somebody else was on the phone.
This is Unique.
Yes, Unique. Yes, come on.
When you were talking about the incident that happened with the comrades at the fair, about how Black Lives Matter wanted to get them to change the plan, and I remember it brought to mind when we went to the Black History Festival, and when we got there, the thing is roped off with, police crime scene tape, and there's just this large police presence, and I just became so agitated, like I wanted to spring into action and just shut the whole thing down.
Mm-hmm.
And I really had to check myself and be like, no, we're here for Black Power 96. We're here to get contacts and spread the word. That's the plan. Stick to the plan. The plan is not to shut this thing down. So just democratic centralism at work. That that wasn't what we went there for. And even though in my own individualism I wanted to throw some tables and shout at some cops, that's not what we were there for.
And I agree. And that happens to me too. And the thing is that we are often in our own communities confronted with these different forces who challenge us in a certain way. They challenge us for legitimacy and all of this. They say, well, we are really in touch with people because we had 4 demonstrations. You say, yeah, but we're building a radio station that's going to connect all the damn people. And yes, we've got all these other things that we're preparing to govern the whole piece. And when we can, we demonstrate, et cetera, but we have a plan. We have another plan, and sometimes we will plan to demonstrate, and sometimes we'll demonstrate when we don't plan it. Sometimes we'll go to circumstances, see something unfolding, and know that we have to leap into action because it's going to, first of all, help to educate masses of people and bring them closer to the political objectives that we've established, a general program, et cetera. We will not get away from the program in order to take on something else. Your enemy can see you on your way to freedom and will take your mama hostage and say, look, I got your mama here and I'm slapping her around. Stop going toward freedom. They did that to Lumumba. They did that to Lumumba when Lumumba was actually, they were out to get on Lumumba, and he had actually escaped and had the opportunity to go forward and develop a movement that could have perhaps won the total liberation of Congo. They had his wife, and he was crossing the river and turned around to come back because the soldiers had his wife. And of course, he was murdered, and that had a serious implication. Now you say, wow, his wife? They had his wife. Yes, they had his wife. These are the kinds of critical questions that will be thrown at us all the time. And the issue is whether we can keep our eyes on what our objectives are to win the liberation of our people. Uhuru. Anybody else?
Uhuru, comrades. This was Mensa.
Yes, Mensa.
Las Vegas.
Yes.
First off, I want to appreciate the chairman and this discussion. And I think something that you said that I gravitated to and unite with is key, which is that this is true accountability. Because what I feel that I have seen with various other organizations that steer away from what we are about and what we do is that there's a lot of finger pointing, a lot of drawing away and distraction of what the actual action is, so the actual action never gets done. And I think it is true that, through some process and through this process, that even if you have someone who is, not where they need to be, the point is the action itself gets done because of democratic centralism. And through self-criticism, through true either realign
Right
or
on.
they will be dismissed based upon themselves. But the point is the action still continues. So I
Splendid.
just really want to appreciate this session and say I think we need to, as you all already know, that we need to continue to focus on democratic centralism because it is the rock and the foundation
Splendid.
of the party and the movement itself.
Splendid. Splendid. Great interpretation. Splendid. Anybody else?
Uhudu, Chairman.
Uhudu.
This is Herdosha.
Yes,
out
Commander.
of St. Louis.
Yes.
And I just really appreciate this study. This is challenging, but it's so liberating. And you know, I just really appreciate this process because it don't feel good while it's happening, but I just come out so much more stronger. So I don't fear being criticized and offering up criticism of myself. And it just showed me how much more I want to be free. It just makes my stand so much more stronger. And it, you know, it has happened and it will happen because we will make error, but we want to overturn it because we want to be free by any means necessary. And whatever we have to offer up, you know, and have to lose or change, you know, because we really want to be liberated. We do trust that, you know, I do know that I can be free. You know,
Right.
I know that I can be self-governing. I have faith in the African people. And that's why I accept this process because I believe in true liberation. And I know the African people can have power and will have power.
Uhudu. And we have faith in our party. This is our party. And the thing that gives it the power, democratic centralism, is one of the things that really gives it the kind of energetic power that we need. Not just power, not some kind of commander's relationship that you have to call Chicago before you do anything, you know, like some groups do, even though they walk in formation pretty well. But anytime they get ready to do something, they got to call Chicago. They can't talk to you without calling Chicago first or something like that. It's not that kind of leadership. And I think that the question of leadership is important. I just cannot overstate that. And democratic centralism teaches us how to lead. And criticism, self-criticism teaches us how to lead. It demands that we lead, that we not just be these passive forces. And sometimes this is a part of the process of developing our own cadre. And having cadre means that we can put people in different places in the world. You might just be, you know, like an ordinary party member who goes out on a regular basis, selling your newspaper, doing what has to be done in Omaha. But the thing is that we can take you out of Omaha and we can put you in Houston. We can put you in Sierra Leone, and we can put you some other place, and you'll be able to find your footing because you have accepted responsibility to lead. Or we can create different committees that you have a responsibility to leading, not just being in the committee. And democratic centralism means that we recognize the significance of leadership. So when you as a cadre, given the responsibility of leading a particular committee, you don't just show up at the committee meetings and everybody just talk and don't receive the benefit of the leadership. That's an absolute a betrayal of the responsibility that we have to lead. And democratic centralism requires more, and it requires that we have to criticize when that kind of thing happens so that leaders can do what we are supposed to do. And it's an ongoing process of development. Uhudu.
Uhuru, Chairman.
Yes, Comrade.
Uhuru, this is Ona in St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
Can you say like what makes up a real self-criticism? You know, because a lot of times, you know, people just, you know, say I'm self-critical.
Mm-hmm.
You know, next time I'm self-critical.
Yeah.
Or they'll write a 5-page self-criticism. Yeah. That doesn't mean anything, and it never gets overturned.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, some people become experts at doing self-criticism. They might not be able to do anything else well, but they become experts at self-criticism, and they become experts at self-criticism because it never gets overturned. And I think that's a really important question, because a self-criticism has to struggle to establish the basis. Why was the contradiction made? Why did I make this error? Why did I do this thing? We really have to, it's a political thing. It's not that, you know, I woke up and didn't feel good, or I woke up, I mean, although somebody might die, I mean, obviously you can't do it if you die or if you got hit by a truck, you know, and get late to a meeting. That's something that can, but can be explained. But self-criticism should really try to explain the origin of the contradiction. Why? Why did I make the error? Why didn't I do what should have been done? I mean, these are critical questions, and these are questions that I think we have to really require somebody. This is a question we have to require somebody to answer. Because what happens, of course, is the bourgeoisie is in us, and neocolonialism is in us, and we've taught to be lazy and sorry, and that's the stance of the African petty bourgeoisie. That's the stance of an ordinary non-African internationalist, somebody who is not striving to win their freedom. And we have to get to the root, and you have to say that. This is my stance, you know, that I betrayed. And also it's important for self-criticism to be political, to keep the political issue in front. What does your not doing that mean in terms of what it was we were supposed to do as a party? What does your failure to do this means in terms of our intent to have, our objective to have Black Power 96 operating in April? You didn't carry out that task. And it's not just, oh, I didn't do it and I feel bad about it. You know, what kind of political implications you're not doing it have for the struggle of our people, right? And the political question has to be kept in the center, and also the basis of the contradiction is something that we have to explore. And if the person making the self-criticism is incapable of doing that, those of us who engage in the discussion have a responsibility to push that, to say what it meant that it didn't happen, and to say what the stance meant, to draw out the political aspects of the contradiction. Uhuru. Is there something you wanted to add to that comment, Ona?
No, that was good.
Okay. Anybody else quickly? We just got a couple of minutes before we shut it down. Because if I don't get something soon, we're going to go ahead and just comment, Gaida, comment Secretary General. Yeah.
Chairman, I just really appreciate this discussion. I mean, being in the party forever, you know, this discussion never gets old, because you're always fighting contradictions. I mean, sometimes we erroneously think that if you achieve a certain level, then you don't have contradictions. But contradictions are always there, and I think it's the party that keeps us intact in terms of the thing that you just raised, that people in the party, not liberal, that would struggle. That's the only way that we can advance. You know, the party struggling with us, and that's the thing that keeps us honest and keep us, you know, intact. I just think that, you know, one of the things that I remember that you always said is that we are creating a new society. And in doing so, that is so important that we really help the people to understand this way in terms of how we function. Because, you know, when it comes to the question of contradictions and criticisms, you know, we talk about black on black, and black on black is something that, you know, that demonstrates to us that our people in the streets, our young people, don't even understand the nature of criticism or how to make a criticism. So each criticism is treated as an antagonistic criticism. So we shoot somebody, you know, and we kill them, you know, as opposed to understanding that we need this soldier. Some of the best soldiers are taken out inside of the community because of this question. And we have to find a way to really massify these kinds of political educations. I know during the Cuban Revolution and other revolutions that they brought the people in and have the people to understand this, to transform the community so that we can address some of these contradictions. Because I just think that this is fundamental for the strength of the party, and it shows, it demonstrates the cohesion of the party when, you know, as we struggle against these contradictions. And I think we look to struggle for the cohesion of the community in a certain way. So I just really think that this is, you know, excellent, and that we have to really find a way right now to begin to have our people understand and engage and participate. And those are things that can affect what is happening in the community.
I think that's right on. I also think that what's really important for us too is our own stance when being criticized, because we have to have a culture of criticism and self-criticism, and it means that people should not be intimidated to criticize. One thing when we talk about how people learn to avoid blame and to simply blame. It's another thing in terms of how we, especially leaders in the party, treat the question of criticism, how we respond to criticism, how somebody doesn't want to say anything to you because I know if I criticize this person, like how they're going to blow up, how they're going to, just do the most subjective kind of stuff that really undermines the significance and meaning of criticism. If criticism is what we say it is, then you're not resentful of criticism, you're thankful. You really are, because the thing is going to help to solve problems. You're thankful that somebody made the criticism. You might say, hey, I appreciate that, but I don't agree with that. And then don't just, I don't agree with it just because I don't agree with it. This is why I don't agree with it. Such and such and such is the case. And I think that if I had done this, the party and the work would have been harmed because of such and such a thing. So that's the kind of thing that we have to do. But our attitudes toward criticism, how we respond to criticism, that's one thing, explosive and blah, 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 blah. Or we act like we've been wounded, like we want to, just act people don't want to criticize if that's what it is. This is a dynamic and helpful thing, not something that's punitive and not something that's blaming. It's just not the bourgeoisie you're dealing with. These are your comrades who want to advance this damn work. So we treat criticism and respond to criticism. That is something that will determine what kind of culture of criticism and self-criticism that's going to exist in the party. And another thing is that right now, it's the arm of criticism that will prepare us for the day when we'll be engaged in criticism by arms. That's what I'm saying. It's the arm of criticism and self-criticism inside the party that will prepare us for the day when we will actually engage in criticism by arms. Because that is inevitable. We don't get out of this without a serious fight. But you can't get involved in the fight if you don't have the organization. I always say, you run into all the time, those comrades on the street say, well, yeah, I ain't do this, but y'all call me when it's time to fight. If I can't get you to pass out a flyer, I'm damn sure not going to ask you to pass out a grenade. You understand? And so, the whole question of democratic centralism, the whole question of criticism and self-criticism is really important. And how we take on this, how we approach it, how we deal with it is also important too. And as leaders of the party, we can't be resentful and walk around carrying grudges and attitudes because somebody criticized us and that kind of thing. It's a whole different new kind of culture, a new kind of world that we're in the process of creating. So, Uhudu, yes.
Chairman.
Yes, Carmen.
Just one other thing. I just wanted to, we know that the Congress is the highest body, and then you have, the NCC, and then, the regional and the units. So as far as democratic centralism is concerned, so would there be a time where the lower body is not subordinate to the higher body? Because like sometimes you have meetings, you have like somebody that's in the lower body who is leading a meeting or leading a particular project, and then you have people that are, in the higher body within that committee. So would there be a time when democratic centralism would not be, where the lower body is subordinate to the high body?
There's not a time ever when democratic centralism will allow the lower body to be higher than the higher body, not to be subordinate. But this is what does happen. The higher body gives authority sometimes to different committees and organizations that we create. And within those organizations, depending on what our function is, for example, when I participate, if I join the local branch of the NPDOM and function in that organization as a member of NPDOM, I am under the discipline of that organization. And because that's something that's already been predetermined, I've helped to make the decision how that was going to be. However, if we have, say, like a Burning Spear newspaper, and there is the Burning Spear has a staff, etc., And then over that staff, the highest force in there may be like our editor, for example. That may be the way it's structured. But then we have different people who write articles who may be a part of the central committee that functions as what? As what in the sphere? What is the central committee to the burning spear? It is the editorial board. So the editorial board, when the relationship that the editor has to the Burning Spear newspaper is something that is achieved immediately and directly through its relationship to the editorial board. So the editorial board is the higher authority. And the editorial board does not function as a part of the Spear staff, even though there may be pages in the Burning Spear that may be written by people who are in the editorial board. As a rule, that's not the case. It's not a part of the staff. As a rule, there can be exceptions to that, but that's the way it is as a rule. Okay, comrades, we have to, yes, comrade. This is it then. So we have to get to announcements, and I'm self-critical that the last call sort of took me over the time that I would have liked to have ended it. But can we go ahead? The last question. What other? The last question. No, that was the last question. That was just a poor statement on my part.
So, comrade guys, it's on you right now. As in terms of the announcements. Okay. Are you muted?
You might be.
Okay, comrade.
Okay, then maybe I should.
Go ahead, please. Let's go.
Could we get, I just want to call the roll again because I know I missed something.
Okay, before that then, on April 9th, Harlem, New York, St. Mary's Episcopal Church, 126. Uhudo. Who is this?
Gazi.
This is Gazi.
Go ahead, Gazi.
Peter Fittis, chairman for the announcement.
I want everybody there. We have to build and move all our forces, and I want everybody to be aware that on April 9th in Harlem, St. Mary's Episcopal Church on 126th Street, we will be conducting with the Black is Back Coalition, Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations, a national conference on the 2016 election and the struggle for self-determination. Is going to be a really important conference, and everybody should come out, try to provide some leadership around the question of the elections. People are debating Bernie Sanders. People are afraid of Trump, and where do we go? How do we deal with that? That's going to be a critical question. So let's get our forces out and participate in that. Go ahead, Gazi.
Hello, comrades. I just want to say I really cherish and appreciate these studies by Chairman Omali Yeshitela and how important these keys are to the growth of our revolution. Now for the announcements. African people are catching hell and are in dire need of African internationalism. We must put out the Burning Spear newspaper wherever we are in public. We need the Burning Spear newspaper in our suitcases, purses, backpacks, and cars. To advance the revolution and build African revolution, become a distributor of the Burning Spear today at burningspearmarketplace.com. Click the Spear link and then scroll down to where it states Burning Spear multiple copies of current issue for distributors. Black Power will be coming to you live on April 30th in the form of Black Power 96.3 radio. Black Power 96.3 will be giving a voice to the African Revolution, a voice that will be heard worldwide. To become a volunteer or a donor for Black Power 96.3, please go to blackpower96.com. Africans are charging America with genocide. President Hadosha has led Impedum to Flint, Michigan, where we are now not just giving Africans water, but political power. Impedum was in ground zero in Flint, Michigan, organizing the Africans to fight against the parasitic state. It's time to rise up and charge the United Snakes of America with genocide. Go to africanschargegenocide.org and sign and share the petition. The African People's Socialist Party is the advanced attachment of the African poor and working class. We dedicate our lives and purpose to the African people and Africa. If you are prepared to join the best sons and daughters of Mother Africa, step forward and join the African People's Socialist Party. Be all that Africa needs you to be, and sign up at joinapsp.org. Now follow us, comrades, to Africa Live. Africa Live brings you the best in news and analysis of the African internationalist perspective. Join us in a live discussion on a variety of topics affecting African people at home and abroad. Africa Live starts in 1 hour at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tune in at uhururadio.com. Uhuru.
I want to make one more announcement. I want to announce that on July 2nd through the 30th, we'll be having what we call the African People's Socialist Party Intensive, and that is work, study, physical education, and it's going to be for 30 long days. And we want you and everybody in your organization to participate in the study. We announce it every week, so I would really like for people to begin to sign up to participate in the study. And can you say where they sign up? Do you have it to do?
No, I don't have
I thought he was going to make that announcement.
I don't have that information right now. So.
Okay. All right. I would like to call the names again to make sure that I have everybody. Janice Sadia, Sarah, Jennifer, Herdoja, Maureen.